Hey, I'm Luke, the lead designer on I Am Fish.
And I'm Oliver, and I do QA and level design on I Am Fish.
And today we're going to be going through some details on how we made the game and having a look at some questions from the community. Now, if you didn't know already, we both work for Bossa Studios. And our general ethos as a studio is to always have fun while we make our games, which generally leads to no two games ever being the same. What we kind of are excited about changes from year to year, and suddenly we want to do that and we go for it. And that does lead to like a very unique spin and very unique genres that I'm sure people are quite familiar with at this point. At Bossa Studios, we like to make sure like everyone here is included in the game creation process, and ideas can really kind of come from anywhere. So the concept of I Am Fish came about from a member of the marketing team who just had an email about this kind of idea of a fish inside like a hamster ball getting to the ocean, and so that kind of got me thinking about the controls and how like the fish will move through this world, and it kind of started tapping into what I Am Bread was, and so then I worked with the programmer from I Am Fish and Surgeon, and we spent a couple of days just throwing together this rough idea for the game, and we had neat little concept by the end of it.
And then from that same game jam came two other games. We put I Am Fish and those two others on the Bossa Presents launcher and gave it to the wider community to let them tell us what they thought that our next game should be. So you would have seen it on like YouTube, on Twitch and various other channels like that, and eventually the answer came back pretty loud and clear. People really liked I Am Fish and wanted to see more of it.
Now, we did have a question about why do we make the game so hard? And actually, if you've played any other titles like I Am Bread or Surgeon Simulator, you'll know that I Am Fish is by far the easiest. It's always a case of we like to make challenging games. We think there's a satisfaction in learning the physics, the controls, and how it plays. And I Am Fish is no different. My best advice would be, you got to kind of get familiar with this idea of you controlling a physics-based fish while inside a vehicle. It was actually one of the core design principles for me that I never took away the control of the fish. So even if you're in a fish bowl, an ice cube, a bucket, you're always controlling the fish. And so you have to think about the momentum and the rolling. If you're rolling down a hill or towards danger, you have to kind of change your mindset a little bit and then swim back against the pull of physics. And I think that's kind of where it can trip some people up. It takes a little while to get familiar with how the game plays. Now, for some tips on how to persevere when you may be getting stuck, we kind of anticipated this, and so that's why we have 4 fish characters. At any moment in the main campaign, you can actually switch which fish journey you're on. Each fish has a completely unique journey, they have unique abilities, and they play a lot differently from each other. So you might find yourself actually being a lot more successful with one of the other fish, and that's going to let you get up practice. Then you jump on another journey and you'll be like, oh, I wonder why I ever got stuck here.
Skip checkpoint has been in since the beginning of the game's inception, and lets players skip past any challenges they find too difficult at the time to experience the rest of the fish journey. They can then play through the rest of the challenges, rest of the levels, and then they can come back and visit the challenge they initially found too hard, and this time they can approach it with more experience.
The one thing we learned from our previous titles was to make the convoluted control scheme optional. So one tip I will have is to check which control setting you're on. If you're on normal controls, you're all good. But if you're on the Bossa style controls, you're basically in for quite a journey. That's what is reminiscent of the I Am Bread and Surgeon Simulator controls. So it's deliberately obtuse, extra challenging, and just really for the masochists out there. My kind of golden rule for designing the Bossa style controls was if I can complete the levels with it, it's all good. But I should not be a good measure for that.
We hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you some insight into how I Am Fish was developed and designed, and that you maybe now got some tips on how best to beat the game.
And I Am Fish is available right now on Xbox Game Pass, and on PC. You'll find it on Steam and on the Windows Game Store.